Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Study Lovers Literature. Today I am going to teach you about Futility, poem by Wilfred Owen. So let's jump to it. Here we have the writer of Futility, Wilfred Owen, who wrote some of the best British poetry on World War I, composed nearly all of his poems in slightly over a year, from August 1917 to September 1980. In November 1980, he was killed in action at the age of 25, 1 week before the armistice. Wilfred Edward Selter was an English poet and soldier. He was one of the leading poets of the First World War. His war poetry on the horror of trenches and gas warfare was much influenced by his mentor Siegfried Sassoon and stood in contrast to the public reception of war at the time and to the confidently patriotic verse written by earlier war poets such as Rupert Brooks. Here we have among his best known works, most of which were published posthumously, are Dulce et Decorum Est, Insensibility, Anthem for Doomed Youth, Futility, Spring Offensive, and Strange Meeting. Owens was killed in action on 4 November 1980, a week before the war's end, at the age of 25. Here we have the first stanza of the poem Futility. Move him into the sun. Gently its touch awoke him once. At home, whispering of field half sown. Always it woke him, even in France, until this morning and this snow. If anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. Second stanza of the poem is think how it wakes the seeds. Woke once the clay of a cold star. Our limbs so dear achieved our sights. Full nerved, still warm, too hard to stir. Was it for this the clay grew fall? Oh, what made futures sunbeams tall to break earth's sleep at all? Here we have the explanation of the poem. Futility was one of the poems that were published appearing in a published magazine known as The Nation on the 5th of June 1918, shortly after being written. It was written in Ripon. Scholars believe in May 1918. Futility takes the form of a short elegy. An elegy or an elegiac poem was a form of writing that had its first depiction in the 16th century but had not been graciously used before. Only a handful of famous elegiac poems come to mind, chief of which is Thomas Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard. An elegy was considered to be a lament, a crying out for the loss of a beloved, and was used primarily in the romantic sense. Once more, Owen subverts the trope by applying it to a soldier, and while scholars who point out Owen's sense of lament homoeroticism in his poems are not wrong, one should also consider the closeness that Owens felt towards his fellow brothers in armies. He wrote, I came out in order to help these boys directly by leading them as well as an officer can, good or bad. The immense strains put on Owens by pushing him to lead the charge contributed to his poetry as well as to the growing sense of misanthropy that he suffered as soon as he returned to war. Futility follows the aftermath of a battlefield. A soldier has died, and his companions reminisces on death and its proximity to wakefulness. Images of death and life are intertwined throughout the poem, and the final effect is of the poem that is close to biblical torture and beautiful but ultimately a lament on the waste of innocent lives. So, friends, that's all about the poem Futility by Wilfred Owen. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe.